Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us with our first Spencer Court Parent Forum on reopening. My name is Dan Milgate, Superintendent of Schools, and I'd like to introduce you to our team that will be joining us today. Ty Zinkowicz, starting from my left, coming over to the right, he's our Assistant Superintendent for Instruction. Rick Wood behind me, he's our Assistant Superintendent for Business. Corey Allen, over to my right, he is our Chief Information Officer and one of our task force co-chairs. He does a lot with our technology resources in our district. And Jonathan Salzberg, to my right, immediate right, he is our Executive Director of Operations and Special Projects. He's also one of our task force co-chair members. We have a parent with us from one of our task force, Megan Sarkis behind me. She'll be joining us, especially for that chat room opportunity for some questions, if any of them are parent related. And then Tim O'Connor, our Director of Student Services, to my left. Tim handles a lot of those health questions, student service questions, scheduling, things of that sort. And hopefully you could see at the top of our screen, Maria Ranieri, who is an interpreter that's joining us today for anyone that needs those services. So what I'd like to do is start by thanking our district-wide reopening task force members, the Board of Education, and the administrative team for their tireless efforts in working on these plans. As you know, details and logistics continue to be developed and adjustments are made based on any new requirements that we receive from the Department of Education, the Department of Health, and the Governor's Office. Additionally, while we continue to provide Friday updates from the district and from each of our schools, we have also been making a coordinated effort here at the district to individually respond to questions and inquiries we receive. With that, I want to thank each of you for reaching out to us and thank our administrative team, especially our principals, for their continued commitment as well. We will continue to do that over the coming weeks and build on our frequently asked question page on the website. So if we can move to the agenda at this point on the PowerPoint. Okay, so the purpose of these forums is to continue to provide everyone with as much information as possible. Our forums will be approximately 1 hour each with 3 20-minute segments divided as follows, as you can see on the screen. I'll give like a general update as where we are as of today or the other forum times. We'll also answer questions submitted to us in advance from parents with my colleagues that are here today. And lastly, we'll do our best to respond to as many of the live chat questions as time permits. For this segment, when Corey Allen comes on, he will be monitoring the chat room in Zoom and will read your questions to our participants who will provide answers. Our goal is to get through all the questions posed today, and if we are not able to do that, what we will do is include those along with all other questions asked in advance with answers on our website. We will try to combine similar questions while doing this, and each of our forums will be very similar with the questions we have received in advance, but we'll definitely have different questions posed and answered in each of the chat questions. So on the next slide, please note that what we'll also do is keep adding these questions and answers to our frequently asked questions that are located on our website, as you can see here. And we are recording these forums also to post on our website for anyone that is unable to attend. We have categorized our questions into health and safety, operations, and instruction categories for this forum and on our website. And as a reminder, next slide, Corey. Along with today, we do have 3 additional parent forums, dates and times scheduled, as you can see on the screen. This Thursday, we have 2 scheduled, and we also planned 1 for next week with our building principals, as we anticipate more details will be available at that point with schedules, logistics, and many of the procedures that we are working on every day. So if we can go back to live at this point. To begin, what I'd like to do is just share a few general comments, first with respect to the work that we need to complete in the coming weeks to be prepared for the opening of schools for our students and staff. Please know that our #1 priority will be the safety of all members of our learning community, and to that end, we will provide answers to many of the questions that were posed around our protocols and systems and that have been put in place with safety in mind. With so many new procedures being developed, another key area of focus for us will be the training, the workshops, the informational learning videos that you'll hear some of the panelists refer to today, and that constant communication, including signage efforts, to ensure that we are working with our administrative teams and putting in the supervision and reinforcement efforts needed as well. Many of the questions that you have posed are related to these types of efforts around safety and for our students and staff. One of the most frequently asked questions that we did receive this past weekend and past week was answered by the remote and hybrid placements announcement that we had on Friday last week. Parents will find those placements in the campus backpack section of our Infinite Campus portal. And what we had to do is review our enrollment intent forms, and we needed a few days to run those in the groups in our Infinite Campus, which you should have received notice on by Friday. If you need assistance with how to access these pages, tutorials may be found on the main page of our website, along with contact information for individuals that will provide you with support. In addition, any individual questions should be directed to your building principal. Please remember, while we are reviewing extenuating circumstances with group placements with our principals, our decisions are still influenced by maintaining a balanced level of students in our classrooms and buses with safety and social distancing in mind, as I just mentioned a little while ago. Related to that question, another question that many of you have asked has revolved around the ability to change from the full remote to the hybrid model, or from the hybrid model to the full remote model, prior to the October 30th date that we have set. Again, to ensure the student and staff safety, our classrooms and buses will be balanced to support the social distancing guidelines. With that in mind, unless a situation is truly extenuating and we can still meet those guidelines, we will not be able to honor changes from remote to hybrid. However, for requests to move from full remote to hybrid, we will most likely be able to process those. So as we move into the next segment of this forum, I want to thank you again for submitting your questions in advance. Because many of you submitted very similar questions, what we will be doing is focusing on answering those questions first. And to begin with, since so many of your questions did revolve around the availability of technology and the use of those resources in our hybrid and remote learning models, we want to answer some of those questions first. I would like to introduce Corey Allen, who will run through some important updates regarding connectivity and resources. We will address many of these questions in this area.
Thank you, Mr. Milgate.
Yep.
Many of the questions that we received in advance were around getting and receiving devices from the district. So in March, we were able to deploy laptops to almost all, but not quite, of our student population and learning community here at Spencerport. And as we look toward the fall, we will ensure that our students at K-12 will all have an updated laptop. So we'll do so with our kindergarten students at our kindergarten orientations, more information about the deployment of those devices to come. And in grades 2 through 12, all of our students, regardless if students received a laptop in the spring, will receive an updated laptop. Again, more information to come on that topic, but students will receive their updated laptop on the first day of in-person instruction at the district. This, of course, for those students who have chosen the hybrid model. For students who have chosen full remote or distance learning, we are working on a plan to deploy those devices for our students who will not be coming into district for in-person instruction. And again, more information on that will be coming forward. As far as connectivity, with our enrollment intent form, we learned a great deal about our learning community and connectivity across the district. We have the data from the enrollment form. We're working currently with families to ensure that all families have acceptable connectivity in the district. And within the next few weeks, we'll be contacting the parents and guardians of students who do not have connectivity and set up a plan to install. Those were really our main questions in regards to laptop deployment and connectivity. Just please be sure that we understand how crucial it is for our students to have devices that are updated and working. As we did in the spring, we will continue to utilize our tech help desk working here out of district office for any parents who are working fully remotely with our students and need to have devices either updated or fixed. And also we will be doing the same through our tech help desks at our high school and at Cosgrove to ensure that those devices, again, are updated and are fully functional. And really, those were the main questions we received from the community, Mr. Milgate.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Allen. Next, I've asked Jonathan Salzberg to share some questions and answers with you that were really important ones that revolve around things like operations, general safety protocols, the lunch programs, and masking. So Jonathan, can you do some of those Q&As for us?
Thank you, Mr. Milgate. While we have approximately half of the students in school at any given time, we do anticipate some logistical challenges within our departments. Since each school has very different situations with respect to their buildings and the available space, each school may look a little different. The first 4 questions that I'm going to touch on are included in our website under the frequently asked questions section, but we have received additional questions regarding them, so I'm going to review those answers once again. The first question, will surfaces be cleaned in between classes? The district is implementing a process wherein custodial staff will circulate through the building throughout the day to clean high-touch surfaces per the New York State Department of Education guidelines. However, as a priority, we are still working out the details of the cleaning process for student desks in between classes. With respect to HVAC systems, we received a question, do classrooms, hallways, gymnasiums all have HVAC systems that meet the new standards? The New York State Department of Health guidance indicates that the district should increase outside air as much as possible while maintaining health and safety protocols. The district has evaluated all of our HVAC systems, and all of those systems will be set to maximize fresh air intake to their capabilities. Do all windows open, and will they be open to assist with ventilation? Most classrooms across the district have functional windows in which staff are encouraged to open and to improve ventilation, unless this introduces a health and safety risk such as allergies or a potential fall. Finally, athletics. What is the status of fall athletics? They're all currently postponed until September 21st. Our athletics office will continue to work in collaboration with the district's task force to prepare for any mandates and guidelines that are provided from the governor's office, the Department of Health, and the New York State Public High School Education Association, so that we can move forward in providing a top-notch athletic experience for our athletes when we are able to return. We also received a few questions about cleaning and personal protective equipment, which I'll now cover. Does the district have enough supplies on hand to meet requirements for a period of time? Cleaning supplies, staff PPE, and other disinfectant materials. Consistent with the SED guidance, the district has ordered an 8-week supply of needed PPE for students and staff relevant to their positions. This includes disposable masks, gowns, face shields, goggles, and gloves in sufficient quantities to get through October. The district also has cleaning supplies and hand sanitizer on hand to supply the buildings through December. We are, however, not experiencing any manufacturer shortages on getting cleaning supplies. We had a question about deep cleaning on Wednesdays, but what happens in between the 2 groups on the Monday and Tuesday model? Rather than attempt to limit cleaning to 1 deep clean on Wednesdays, a process will be in place where every afternoon, cleaning staff will circulate through the building and disinfect the touch surfaces such as desks using what is called a Protexis electrostatic sprayer, or a similar method. Cleaning staff will also circulate through the building, cleaning high-touch surfaces and restrooms periodically through the day and in the evening when the building is empty. Finally, we received a question of whether there would be plexiglass in between student desks. Right now, furniture will be arranged so that 6 feet of social distancing is maintained in all directions, including between student desks and the teacher's desk. The district is, however, exploring ordering polycarbonate barriers for use if it is determined that an enrolled class size requires desks closer than 6 feet. Next up, we received a number of questions about meals and cafeteria and lunch distribution. I'll read the question. Where will middle school students eat lunch? Will seating be spaced out? And what will the lunchroom look like? So each building is laying out furniture to maximize student seating while still maintaining 6 feet of social distancing in all directions. This will affect each building differently. For example, at the high school, the plan is to have seating in the west cafeteria and the west gymnasium so as to have enough seating during the lunch period. The middle school will use the cafeteria and seats will be spaced 6 feet apart and clearly marked for students. Students will be able to speak to one another, but spacing will remain at 6 feet, so barriers would not be required. Will students receive meals in the cafeteria or the gym as stated in the reopening plan? And was there consideration given to meals in the classrooms? So meals in the classrooms were considered. However, the task force determined that meals should remain in the cafeteria due to the staffing needs, logistics of serving the meals, and the subsequent cleaning required in the classrooms. The meals will be served with additional precautions on the lunch line, such as prepackaged meals and/or individually wrapped items, and any aspects of self-service opportunities will be removed from the lunch lines. Next up, there were a number of questions around the expectations of all staff and students wearing masks. Will students with health issues that allows them to not wear a mask, will they be placed in a virtual learning setting? How will mask wearing be enforced? What is the mask wearing policy during instructional time? And will students with exemptions be in the same room? And please explain the masking policy in detail. For masking, please know that as noted in the FAQ online, when our plan came out, we were following the New York State Education Department guidance document, which allowed for mask removal during meals and instruction. We have since revisited the issue of masks and determined that the district will require masks throughout the day, including during instruction. Students will be required to wear a mask at all times, except when eating, playing an instrument with 12 feet of spacing, and during a mask break, or if they have a valid medical exemption. We had a question about medical exemptions, and will we be notified immediately if a student or staff member doesn't wear a mask or has a mask exemption? I can say that for medical exemptions, the Monroe County Department of Health is setting up a process where the exemptions must be requested through the Department of Health as opposed to from pediatricians. The district will not be notifying parents that a specific student does or does not have a medical exemption, as these are medical in nature. A question about how the mask wearing policy will be enforced. With respect to enforcement of the mask requirement, the district is currently exploring an amendment to the Code of Conduct to require masks as part of the dress code. Administrators will be attending a BOCES training tomorrow on this subject, and we anticipate any changes to the Code of Conduct to be presented to the Board of Education at the next board meeting and then communicated through the principals. With respect to drop-off and pickup times, the question is, what will the drop-off and pickup times look like? Will we be provided time frames for picking up our children, and with so many more parents picking up their children? Currently, the district is still working on the plans for this. Right now, transportation is beginning to route the school buses, which may affect the times, but we are also trying to plan for increased traffic for those students who are driven by their parents. As Mr. Zinkowicz will note, at this time, we are not anticipating changing any of the bell times for the secondary or the elementary level. But the district is still developing plans to address pickup and dismissal, and any changes to those procedures will be communicated through the building principals prior to the first day of school. That's what we have so far, Mr. Milgate.
Okay, and again, thank you for sending all those questions in. Another area or bucket that a lot of the questions fell into was around health and safety in our students, and we thank you for those questions as well. I'm going to ask Tim O'Connor to review some of those questions now and with some of the answers.
Great, thank you, Mr. Milgate. As usual, we appreciate the questions from the community, and many of them have been focused on daily health screenings, testing, and what to do if a student becomes ill during the school day. And I appreciate the opportunity today to answer some of those. So the first question reads, if guardians are supposed to complete a health checklist every day, how are we to trust the information is accurate and that kids aren't being sent to school sick or with a fever? So we can share that we will be using an application called Qualtrics for our daily health screening tool. And this system will be able to send out messages in the form of email and SMS text messages each morning to families and staff, which prompts parents and staff members to complete the daily health screening. To further support this stated requirement, we are currently working on educational materials to help train students and guardians on how to complete the screening properly. We will have to rely on the collaborative and trusting relationship between the district and our families to complete this health screening on a daily basis. But additionally, staff will be trained on the identification of symptoms related to COVID-19, and we will require students to be assessed by the school nurse if they become symptomatic during school hours. The next question asks about a vaccine. When a vaccine comes out, will all students be required to get the vaccine before able to attend school in person? The local health department has an extremely positive working relationship with local school districts. And this is an area where the district would work with the local Department of Health to determine the process and the requirements for vaccinations and how they are related to school attendance. The next question, will students be required to be tested for COVID? And if so, how often will they have to repeat the testing? Or will testing only be required once there is a positive case? So our school district will take the lead from the Monroe County Department of Health in all matters related to testing. The local health department will respond and perform a thorough investigation, including contact tracing, if there is a positive test within the district. We have received questions about the naming of students and staff members should there be a positive case. In order to comply with HIPAA law, the names of students or staff that may test positive will not be shared. The Monroe County Department of Health will notify the community of a positive case of a student by identifying the school name. Similarly, the Monroe County Department of Health will notify the community of a positive faculty case by identifying the name of the district. The local Department of Health will contact families directly with the need to quarantine or isolate. We've also received questions about returning to school or learning after experiencing COVID-related symptoms or a positive COVID test. Students who have had symptoms consistent with COVID-19 will be able to return to learning with documentation of evaluation by a healthcare provider and a negative COVID test result and symptom resolution by a physician. Or, if positive, release from isolation by the Department of Health. The next question again is on student screening. If the student's parents doesn't submit the health screen, what is the process? So after the home screening is completed, the district's electronic software, so Qualtrics, will provide a list of students who have and who have not been screened in real time. In the morning, students will enter through their designated entry point, and staff will identify students who have not completed the electronic screening procedure. Students who have not completed the screening process will be identified upon arrival to schools and will be discreetly sent to the nurse's office for health screening to include temperature reading. The details associated with this procedure will vary slightly based upon school building, but all students will have a temperature screen and symptom check on a daily basis. There was a question about visitors in school. No outside visitors will be allowed in the school building without prior approval from the building or district COVID-19 coordinator. This includes family members of Spencerport staff who are not allowed in the building or campus. Parents and guardians will report to the greeter station and not go beyond it unless it is for the unless it's for the safety or well-being of their child. Meetings or visits with parents are to be conducted using teleconference or video whenever possible. And then lastly, what is the procedure if a child is ill at school and needs to go to the nurse's office, most especially if it's a fever, sore throat, headache, or cough, or any of the COVID symptoms? There has been reference to COVID room or isolation room. What exactly does that mean? Is the child alone or are they with others? How is this situation handled? Per the New York State Ed reopening guidance, any ill student or staff will be assessed by the school nurse if they're presenting with the symptoms related to COVID-19. Anyone who has a temperature of 100 degrees Fahrenheit or greater or has a positive response to the screening questionnaire will be isolated from others and sent home. An illness location, otherwise known as an isolation room, has been identified in each school building, and students will be supervised in that location while awaiting transport home. Once again, thank you for the questions related to health and safety, and we would continue to encourage you to review the reopening section of the district website for matters related to health and safety.
Okay, thank you, Mr. O'Connor. And finally, Mr. Zinkowicz, this is the last part of our middle segment. He's going to provide a summary of the many questions that were asked that were related to the instructional program and the delivery of services in the hybrid and remote learning models. And this is obviously a large part of the work that we are diligently working on with our administrative team and teachers union on some important details with our instructional models. So Mr. Zinkowicz will provide you with that information, and then after that, we'll move into the chat portion of our program.
Thank you, Mr. Milgate. I'm going to start off first with the whole issue of laptops. As Mr. Allen mentioned earlier, every single student will be issued a laptop. If families selected the hybrid option and they don't currently have a laptop, that laptop will be distributed on a day that a child is in session. And for remote learners, including kindergartners, we'll be assigning a laptop either through a schedule or through an orientation. That information will be forthcoming. In terms of start date for the school year, the first day of school will be Monday, September 14th for both remote and hybrid students. This later start date will allow for our staff training and planning to support our students through the various instructional models. The start and end times for every school will remain the same as they did last year, and that will not change. Why did we group students by Monday, Thursday, and Tuesday, Friday model? This is based on the blue and gold grouping that families had access to last Friday. And this is based on the advisory task force made a recommendation for Monday, Thursday, Tuesday, Friday, after there's concerns expressed about students being out of school for a full week under the Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday option. We were worried about routines, ensuring that our students had regular access to their teachers as frequently as possible, and that's why we went with that model. In terms of the algorithm and how we divided students into blue and gold groups, as we shared, we try to keep it as even as possible so that families can remain the same, on the same schedule, and so that we could then balance our classes based on the individuals that select a remote, so we knew how many students would be in any given classroom or school on any given day. Question was asked, will there be an updated calendar with day rotations published by the district? Yes, there will be a separate day rotation calendar for the high school, middle school, and elementary school. It is our hope that we'll finalize this and post it by the end of the week. Is there a possibility that district switching from the hybrid model to an all-in class in the middle of the year? That is all of our hope at some point that we'll return to normal. However, this decision will be based on guidance from the governor's office. Question was asked, why isn't kindergarten running 5 days a week? Due to enrollment and the ability to safely social distance, kindergarten will follow the hybrid schedule. Now, I'd like to provide just an overview of remote and hybrid models. So a question was asked, could you describe what the full remote learning model will entail? Is it going to be similar to the end of last year's structure? In response to the distance learning survey that the district administered in the spring, parents shared that they would like their child to have greater access to their teachers and higher expectations in terms of academic requirements. Although the final details for 100% remote learning haven't been finalized, the district is working diligently to incorporate the feedback that our community provided. And unlike the spring, students will need to be assessed on their academic progress throughout the school year. And this will require a more rigorous approach in terms of teaching and learning. Now, as we look at the remote instruction, and there's many questions posed about remote instruction, I'd like to provide a quick overview if I could. We need to develop, as a school district, calendar maps for every single grade and every single class in order to ensure those families that selected hybrid, those that selected remote, are all on the same page. Obviously, our teachers have been providing differentiated instruction to try to optimize every personalized learning opportunity for their students. But we're taking an approach in terms of remote learning. We're differentiating between K-5 and 6-12. K-5, obviously, students require more access to their teachers, require a set schedule. However, they may not be available during the time when teachers will be providing remote learning opportunities. There is a requirement that the governor outlined where we have to take into consideration equity for all. So for example, if an elementary teacher is providing remote instruction during a certain period from, let's say, 9 to 10 a.m., and a student does not have access because they're in daycare, then it's our responsibility to provide recorded lessons for the student and their families to access at a later time. K-5, our approach, what we're currently discussing and hopefully finalizing, involves an approach with access to a teacher on a regular basis, working on ELA, math, social emotional learning. There'll be some small group, whole group instruction, and those students will have access to their teachers as well. At the secondary level, obviously a little bit more independence. We're looking at a version similar to the spring, but more enhanced with greater expectation, where students would have to adhere to a schedule based on their course assignments, based on what they selected, and the details for that approach will also be forthcoming by the end of the week. In terms of the hybrid model, our school district has employed blended learning for quite a few years now. And that approach is a balance between mini lessons, independent work, digital content. One of the things that you heard me mention moments ago, we need to ensure that our hybrid students are on the same page as our remote students, with the major difference being that our hybrid students will have access to their teachers. With that, at the K-5 level, the work that we do for our two different groups, blue and gold, we'll create that curriculum map so everyone's on the same page. We'll focus on the most salient, essential to know concepts. within a given week. At the 6-12 level, there'll be a little bit more independent work required from the students based on their readiness level, based on their age, based on the systems and routines that they have participated in since they've been here in Spencerport. With specials at the K-5 level, our intent is to minimize travel, so students will stay in their classroom for the majority of the day. And when they have specials, those teachers will then travel to the classroom. With the exception of physical education, all the instruction will be delivered right in their classroom. Phys ed, hopefully will maximize our outdoor learning environment. And also our phys ed teachers will plan accordingly to utilize large space, such as the gymnasium, to ensure that that 12 feet of distancing takes place. At the secondary level, students will travel. We'll be providing a modified block in order to ensure that we have more travel time in between classes so that the teachers can stagger when students are released from one class to the next class in order to minimize the amount of people in the hallways. When it comes to extra help before and after school activities, at this time there will be no before or after school activities such as intramurals, activity period at the high school, etc. Students will have access to their teachers though for extra help, either in person or digitally. And we're working right now on a process for set hours for students to access their teachers. When it comes to the day-to-day operation of the school, right now school lockers will not be available. The students will not have access to them. If an individual hopes to change from one format, remote to hybrid or vice versa, as Mr. Milgate mentioned, we're trying to minimize that, especially when we look at the hybrid model in order to ensure that our class sizes are balanced. Our grading practices in the spring, we provided feedback to families. And our hope is within the next 2 weeks to also announce how we're going to approach grading and assigning those grades, knowing that will be a requirement for our students and for our teachers. When it comes to our students with disabilities and any other specialized services, it's our responsibility to ensure that those minutes on an IEP, those accommodations on an IEP are met, whether that occurs in person on the days where a student is in session or remotely. It'll be handled on a case-by-case basis. That's also the same for our related service providers. So if a student receives counseling, OT, PT, speech, etc., they'll be handled on a case-by-case basis. It could occur in the school, possibly take place in a home, or via teletherapy. Now, I recognize that we want to provide more information, specific information, and there's our hope within the next few days to have all of the specific details posted on our website and communicated to our community.
Thank you, Mr. Zinkowicz. And at this time, what we'd like to do is shift over to the final segment of our forum today. I've asked that Corey Allen provide a quick summary of how we'll work through the questions and answers that are being sent in to us. And then again, we'll do our best to answer as many as we can today, and whichever ones we don't get to, we'll also answer in our frequently asked questions section of our website. And we'll continue this into our next forum next week. So Again, we're meeting every day, so some of these questions and the answers to them will literally change as we work through our meetings over the next couple of days. So, Mr. Allen, how would you want to give a brief explanation of moving forward?
Yes, sir. We've been collecting questions via the chat throughout. Thank you so much for the thoughtful questions. Some of these questions, especially earlier on in the forum, have been answered by the people around this table. But what we will do is we will take like questions, as many of them fall around or in the same category, and we will we'll answer those specifically for Jonathan, Tim, Mr. Milgate, myself, and Mr. Zinkowicz, and we'll just go right down the line. To begin, we had a very good question in regards to our system and ensuring that our system, that being our network, has been tested so that we know that it will not fail. We can say that throughout our transition to online testing through New York State, we have multiple times had to test our system to ensure all of our students at grades 3 through 8 could be on testing at one time, and in doing so, we were able to and have been able to ensure that our system is robust enough to handle the workload. Also, making sure that the platforms that we partner with, and in this question, it was referenced that Schoology went down in March, which is accurate, are now capable of handling that workload as well. Again, thank you very much for the thoughtful question. The next question we have is in regards to kindergarten. What time will teaching be for the kindergarten kids on the 3 days that they will be home? And again, we will do our best to answer many of these questions, knowing that those answers, many of those we are still working through.
So in terms of that question, that's to be determined, unfortunately. It will not be at the same time as when they're in session, knowing that the teacher will be working. So if the student's assigned to the blue group and they're in their class on Mondays and Thursdays, then the question really is specific to what happens on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. That instruction will be more independent. They will have access to their teacher, but in terms of the exact time, that has yet to be determined.
Thank you, Mr. Zinkowicz. Next question is, what is the process for virtual students to receive hands-on materials such as books, packets, or worksheets? Full-time remote learners need to have access to the same materials as hybrid students.
That's a good question. We're actually trying to limit the amount of materials used and have hands off as much as possible. But similar to the spring, the principals set up times for pickup and delivery of materials. So I'm sure the principals will be working through that over the next couple of weeks, again, with some of the details of how to pick those up, similar to the laptops we talked about for the remote learners.
That goes directly into the next question, which asks, will first graders that are doing the hybrid model get laptops? Absolutely, we are preparing those right now. And those devices will be deployed on the first day of in-person instruction at grade 1. Next question, again, back to laptops. Will laptops be available during orientation? That depends upon the grade level. For instance, K will be deployed at orientation. 6 will be deployed at orientation, and also 9 will be deployed at freshman orientation. 6 and 9, because those are our usual touch points for the deployment of laptops. And anything beyond that, specifically because it's new to us, at grades 1 through 5 will be deployed upon the first day of in-person instruction.
In terms of the next question, will remote sessions be scheduled or recorded so it can be accessed at any time? Yes, across the board for K through 12, we'll be providing synchronous, meaning live instruction opportunities for, especially for our secondary students, but then also students will have access to the recorded version as well that they can find in their Schoology course.
Next question, again, back to devices or laptops. For the high schoolers who had laptops before the spring, will any updates be needed on those? Again, we will collect grade 9 students, so our freshmen, 8 go 9, then we will be collecting their old laptops and giving them the new updated laptops. And for our high schoolers past the freshman class, we push those laptops out remotely. We push those updates out remotely, and they will be getting those updates upon logging into the system when they're in school. So that all those updates will be provided remotely.
In terms of the start and end of the school day, it will remain the same. So K5 will begin at 9 a.m. and end at 3:30, going all the way to the secondary level, where high school will begin at 7:25 and the school day will end at 2:10.
Sorry. The next question is about drop-off and pickup times and whether children will be able to arrive early. And I think that's really been a building level decision up to now. And again, our main goal is to make sure that there's supervision available and that we can do that in a safe way. So we'll put that question on our website and get a more specific answer, but we really do need to make sure the buildings have the supervision available to do that.
The next question, excuse me, was asking, did I hear that only grades 2 through 12 will be receiving laptops? No, just as a correction, that grades K through 12 will be receiving laptops. Every student in each grade.
So the next question is, my child is doing remote. Is there going to be face-to-face learning and not just reading? Will there be specific times that school will start for remote children? Yes, there'll be for the remote option at the elementary level. Our hope is to have established times and that we'll then do it age accordingly. So meaning the amount of time that we're required for our kindergarten students will not be the same as the amount of time that we require for our 5th grade students.
Thank you. The next question is, what types of chemicals will be used in the sprayers that we referenced?
So in the district, we'll be using chemicals from our supplier, which is Hilliard. And those chemicals are all in compliance with New York State Green Cleaning and New York State regulations on the use of acceptable chemicals in the student occupied areas. Specifically, one is called Rejuvenol, which we will be using to clean surfaces, and bleach will not be allowed.
Thank you. The next question, will teachers for elementary have clear masks so students can see the teacher's mouth and expression?
So we have worked on purchasing masks for all employees, and obviously teachers have the opportunity to bring in their own personal mask, and that may be a clear mask. We are working on what it may look like for teachers, maybe in some of our special areas, to wear face shields, right? With the effort to allow students and assistants with seeing facial expressions during instruction.
So next question, students with IEPs, how will in-person services be provided for students with disabilities and IEPs in a general education classroom when the student is only in the classroom 2 times per week? We will adhere to the recommendations and accommodations on a child's IEP. We will then work with our special ed providers, related service providers on ensuring that those minutes are adhered to either in person or remotely.
Next question, why are they going to be required, they being students, to wear masks in the classroom if they are in fact 6 feet apart in such classrooms?
You know, I think at the beginning we talked about securing the most safe conditions we can, and right now that is the Department of Health's recommendation, is that provides us that. So to start our school year off with, we will be doing that, requiring that. But again, I believe Tim mentioned earlier about making sure we provide professional development for the staff and students about mask breaks will be important. We know that, so that the masks are not on the whole time. But we can continue to provide updates with that as we get more information from the Department of Health.
Thank you. How will parents pick up elementary students after school, or will parents be allowed inside the schools?
This goes back to that staggered pickup and drop-off time question, because we need to look at the numbers. Remember, we have half the amount of students coming in roughly, plus students staying home on remote. So if we find the need to stagger pickup and drop-off times, that's what we'll have to do. And the principals will work with parents regarding that. It'll be important that parents help us with that, though, because you think about the high school and the flow of traffic out front. And Munn Elementary is a great example where if too many cars are in there at any given time, it creates a safety concern, which a lot of your questions reference. So we're going to be working on this one, but it requires us to get down the specific numbers of who's not going to use our transportation system.
Thank you. Then the next question was addressed, but it might be beneficial to hear again. If full remote schooling is not working for my child, will this fall into the category approved switching from remote to hybrid?
So one of the things that we're trying to do is just ensure that we have that balance. You'll notice in the enrollment intent form that we want families to try out their current selection until the end of October. At that point, then making that request so that we can switch accordingly.
Yep.
And that's our hope, just in order to ensure that we can make those balance classes.
Thank you. Next question. What is the course of action if a teacher or student is tested positive?
So in that instance, as we had mentioned earlier, we will really be working closely with the local Department of Health and take their direction in terms of communication and next steps. We'll provide assistance in terms of contact tracing. And again, adhere to any other requests from the Department of Health, but really the Department of Health will take the lead on testing.
What do you want me to ask?
So the next question, has there been the same type of effort and planning put forth to address racial equity issues? We are currently working on that with our equity committee. We have student summits who are part of this work. We have mapped out a series of professional development for the 2021 school year that will address not only our faculty, but also our students and our entire learning community, meaning parents and other community members. Our hope is to roll this out within the next month in terms of what this looks like. But obviously, we're looking at equity quite seriously, quite closely. We want to make sure that everyone is on the same page in terms of opportunity here in Spencerport.
Just a quick aside before the next question. I see several members of our audience have raised their hand in the chat. We would ask you please to type your question into the chat as we work our way down through, and that way we can answer your question. Next question is in regards to the symptom checker. If there is one symptom, for instance, a runny nose of a student, then they cannot come to school. He said that the physician must clear the student and return and testing. So we need to have our child tested for COVID if a runny nose or one of the other symptoms that occurred before they can come back, question mark, or it will be up to the physician to determine if the COVID test is needed.
Yeah, we understand that this, it could be a challenge that we face. However, locally, all of the local providers are having these conversations as well. They're going to be as responsive as possible to school districts as they see an influx of students who may be presenting with COVID symptoms. Also working with our health services team here in the district and our new medical director, we've been having these same types of conversations. But ultimately, students will be sent home when they have symptoms of COVID, unless we have documentation from a provider regarding a chronic illness. Any new or acute onset of symptoms would require them to be sent home. If they were sent home or answered on any of the screening questions that they did have any symptoms consistent with COVID, they would need to be seen by the provider, cleared of symptoms, and have that accompanied by a negative COVID screen. Again, that's coming from the guidance from the Department of Health and State Ed.
The next question addresses WMOCO. So if a child has selected the remote option, yet is attending WMOCO, what will that look like? Currently, our high school is working with WMOCO on just logistics. And once again, it's our hope to release this information as quickly as possible.
Next question is about our families who do not have internet access. Will the district be providing them MiFi? We are currently working with those families who answered on our enrollment intent form that they do not have sufficient access or connectivity to help them in providing that before the school year begins.
The next question is for students who are remote learning only, will it be a formal day with classes? Will assignments next assigned in Zoom? Our students can join if needed. Yes, there'll be an assigned schedule. It will just be different between K-5 and 6-12.
See, when will we know how many children are in my child's class? And this is also another question that we saw several like questions before and after this around what will be the average, what can we predict to be the average size of a classroom?
In terms of classes like art, band, chorus, will they still be offered on remote learning days? Yes, they will. However, it will be based on a calendar map where students then would have access primarily in their Schoology course, or there could be some hours in a schedule where students then will have access to their teacher within the confines of the school day.
Will remote students be able to get help or tutoring or Zoom with a teacher if necessary?
Yes, they will. We're finalizing just when that will take place, what time of day that will be available for students and families.
When will we be receiving a daily schedule for hybrid elementary learners to know when the teacher's live sessions are?
So for elementary learners, the live sessions will occur based on the Monday, Thursday, Tuesday, Friday schedule. Students who on those other 3 days will be learning remotely. They won't necessarily have access to their teachers at that time.
Next question, similar in some points. Will hybrid and remote students have the same teacher for instruction?
They will, it depends on the situation. For instance, also if there's a change in the selection. So for students that select remote at the beginning of the school year and we come back full return to for the entire district, there's a likelihood, and depending on the level, that they could end up having a different teacher.
Okay. Next question again for our remote learners. Will remote students have specific times to be on a Zoom for the live teaching during school days?
Yes, there will be. Once again, that will be released both at the K-5 and 6-12 levels.
Your question for the remote one up above, will the teachers for full remote?
So the question, will the teachers for full remote group be from our current elementary school? Yes, that is our intent. In terms of how many kids are estimated in a classroom, we envision less than 50% of the currently scheduled number.
Next question, if you aren't doing activity period, will you be allowing time for students to stay after with teachers for extra learning time?
They won't be able to stay after. It'll be a virtual opportunity for all of our students. So that'll be involve both the remote learners and students who are not in school on a day if they select the hybrid. So for example, if I'm a blue group student, so I attend school on Mondays and Thursdays, and it's a Tuesday afternoon at the high school during an activity period, I can then access my teacher or teachers during that time period.
And I think, remember, this is the beginning of our school year plan. We will be reevaluating our plan and what we're doing as we go along. So that's part of the reason why we set the date of October 30th to revisit some of these systems.
Next question asking, how are they handling reading AIS services specifically?
So in terms of that, there'll be a combination of both the remote and hybrid option. It'll be push and support at the elementary level with a pull-aside model.
So with that, I will turn back to Mr. Milgate.
Okay, so just for planning purposes and knowing that we told people we'd be going till 1 o'clock, there are still a number of questions. And in the beginning, I shared that we would capture those questions as well, put answers to those questions and make sure we post this by the end of the week on our website, along with the other 2 sessions that we have planned for this week for parents. And ultimately, we know that you're going to have more questions. So as I mentioned at the beginning, it would be very helpful if you do reach out to your building principals with questions or any of us, and we'll get back to you as soon as we possibly can for doing that. We know that the school year is going to look different, but please know that We are very much invested in the health and safety of our students, the staff and families, and will continue to make that our top priority. You could also continue to submit questions to our info@spencerfordschools.org or contact your building principal for more information. And Corey, if you could switch back over to the PowerPoint. That information, and we'll post this short PowerPoint on the website so you have that, is available here. And again, thank you very much for participating in our first forum. We will be scheduled again, I believe, at 10 a.m. on Thursday, or 9. It's supposed to be 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Sorry. Again, you're more than welcome to join that one, or these will be provided on the website as a taped version of today's forum. So thank you very much, and we'll be in touch soon with more information. Thank you, everyone.